Welcome. And we're going to go ahead. I think the district is ready to do its proposal response. So I have a document for you. Now ours is less pages, I'd just like to note.
Not a competition.
And I'm going to ask, just so you're not going ahead and fold it like this each time as we go through it. You don't jump to the very end, please. And I'll wait till everybody's
So that makes it hard to know I want to rebel.
I know you know.
That's why she said it, Marcy.
We're just missing how much restraint there is.
That's extras, right?
Yeah.
Okay, no, that's okay.
And the way we set this up is we didn't go through and do all the pronoun changes, but just noting that at the top. There's a couple of places we did as we've been combining our pieces throughout the contract, but just knowing kind of across the board. And then the highlights are the changes. And then in the end, we also have some comparative information that we want to share as we go into the financials. So starting with Article 1, and I guess I would also say if it doesn't specifically indicate an exact response to one of your pieces, that means we're not proposing a change to what's currently in there. Okay. So Article 1, a simple change, but we're okay with the change of one word. Same with Article 2. Article 3, we'd like to leave current language, so no changes. Article 4, I chose not to put the whole MOA and just reference. That's what we had agreed to last time, and that's a proposal. I can certainly bring that if the group does not have that for next time, or even send it electronically if it's helpful. It's many pages, so just reference. Okay. Article 5. In 5.1, believe those were your proposed changes. We're okay with that. 5.3, we're recommending 6 months because everyone has a different calendar. And so just trying to have an easy way to identify the reclassification status before something's reclassified. Turning the page, we're at 5.5. And this we have brought forward in our first proposal was updating when the date of a reclassification goes into effect, because we do recognize that sometimes based on meeting times, so the committee can't get together soon. And so going back to when the request is made. Article 6, this is actually just more of a suggestion of where we might want to move some pieces to actually better align with their compensation section. Article 6.2, in the event district designated supervisor directs or an emergency circumstances arises, an employee is paid for their unpaid lunch. This actually should be in practice current. I think we were probably just wanting to update the language to reflect that on the let's see, 6.3. I believe this was just a slight word change. 6.4 with overtime, also just updating it to round up. Moving to Article 7, you had a couple pieces in blue language, so just acknowledging we're okay with that. And then 7.9.2 are okay with striking that language, but actually going ahead with the next sentence, employees will be responsible for notifying the district if they choose to be removed from the recall list and of any change that is during the day. And then 7.9.3, we're updating, so being clear that it's calendar days, and then removing D. Article 8. Adding the last sentence, this is current practice. Any employee may attach a response to any information placed on the personnel file. Noting for Article 9, there were some blue language changes from 9.2 and 9.3 we're fine with. And Article 10, updating instead of acting, putting working out of classification. 10.5, you had suggested some language. I think we just modified it slightly, and it's just really to try and recognize when a retiree is coming back based on placement. Because of the current salary schedule, we have a couple people that are sort of what I call on a forever schedule. And so just being clear of any individual coming back that we work based on the schedule that's in print. So that's why the step 15 clarification. 10.9, we had brought the first piece as far as just noting that we came to an agreement, so we are using the same salary schedule. We don't have different schedules that somehow get printed because of the timing of different contracts. And then the piece about classified employees hired into coaching positions not having to do their leave. And we had talked about that in our coaching stipend committee and wanting to note that. And I think, Mary, just for clarification, through that, we also talked about, because this is new, individuals prior were having to use their own leave. If there appears to be sort of taking advantage of, we need to revisit. But that's why having the athletic director approving, like if the bus is supposed to leave at 2, then it leaves at 2, rather than, oh, I need to leave at 1 kind of thing. So just wanting to be clear about that. 10.14, this is updating language and it is matching with our licensed staff. Article 11, we'll talk about the insurance cap when we get to the financial. Article 12, we have an MLA about the Juneteenth holiday, so incorporating that language. Article 13, we're recommending the strikeout and then looking at being able to carry over some days. We recognize we have some employees, especially this year, you know, it's been harder for people to take time off. And so not looking to penalize, but putting in language that is helpful. Also incorporating a meeting a minimum number of days unless it's an emergency to be able to access vacation. Typically vacations are planned events. Moving to Article 14. This is more of this kind of a clarification in that first piece. And then we have been our practice has been allowing employees to utilize sick leave in 15-minute increments, but I know that the contract has been hourly, so looking to update that. And I just would want to note my recommendation when someone gets in a situation, if it's 15 minutes or half an hour, they need to leave early for an appointment. We work with their supervisor to try and flex time. To me, it doesn't make sense to take that big extra step to put 15 minutes of leave. That's pretty minimal, and I think that's usually doable to be able to do. Looking at 14.9 with legal leave. Looking at just providing clarification. Hobie, I know you said that actually within this is all under House Bill 2016, and in comparing with her attorney, some is, but if an individual chooses to sue us just on their own, then that doesn't apply under 2016, and so don't want to lose that, but did want to put a clarification, so hopefully this meets what you were hoping for within that. 14.10, putting a sort of a disclaimer as far as leave without pay, and this is typically someone who's looking for, you know, whether it's I'm wanting to take 3 months off because of some sort of event. That probationary employees, they just started with us, and actually we'd like to see them working and not providing that long-term leave without pay. Article 15, I think this is a piece you brought forward as far as incorporating the union in that. 15.6, just updating as far as the access to Quickly Bank in the past has been a little bit tighter, but being able to indicate for physical or mental illness, and then also for temporary disability, because if it's an actual disability, there's a whole different process with the union and everything. So this is someone who maybe for a short window needs some accommodations. Article 16. So we're recommending or proposing to increase from 1,500 reimbursement to 2,000, and then striking based on hours. And then increasing the pool of funds to 25,000. And I think you had proposed April 1 just to provide for, usually it's that spring term date, so we can certainly work with that. Please. And then looks like the last sentence carryover. So no problem providing the reporting fund balances, but upon request, just so it's not something we have to always remember to do. 17, updating the language with bargaining, not a problem. Article 18, proposing 5 uniform shirts of clothing for food service. For maintenance employees, 3 sets of pants and 5 shirts. And then our custodial employees, 5 shirts. And so I know we actually, last time we bargained, we spent quite a bit of time discussing this article. So trying to make some adjustments, recognizing there was the concern about people not having to do laundry more often than not. So. Article 19, leaving our current language in place. Article 20 and 21, the same thing. Article 22, just updating the term. 22.2.5 is striking, and 22.2.8, those I think are just some clarification pieces. Moving to 22.3, looking at providing some additional time, so 15 rather than 10. And we're looking at in 22.4, the same type of thing. Updating then from 5 days to 10 based on the level 1 follow-up, and that plays throughout with 22.4.3. Article 13, I know we have spent quite a bit of time over the last few years in discussion about this as well. And so our proposal is that training is provided, and if it's not deemed sufficient, then we certainly want to provide additional training. And if safety plans are changed, that they will be shared with staff who do work with the student. So you had slightly different languages. This is not exactly yours, but this is our counter proposal to that. And then moving to Article 24. So this is the duration. As mentioned, we're interested in a 3-year. You have proposed adding the last sentence, bargaining shall be in accordance with the ORS, so incorporating that. Do want to note down at the bottom, removing Appendix D, that's the extra duty salary schedule, so that currently is out of date already. But by putting that language in Article 10 under extra duty, would automatically remove that. And then also you had in the safety Article 23, recommended some language that we've had in an MOA. We're open to continuing that MOA, but keeping it actually as an MOA. So that's what this note is here. And before you flip the page, have you pause. Before we talk about the financials, we do want to share a little bit about comparators, because I know that has been a piece that comes up. And Olivia, is this for the Sarah team? For everyone. No, I think there's only copies. Okay. I don't. We can make more copies if you need. Okay. So Olivia, I know you pulled this recently. We do look at our peer groups and this is number of districts that we've looked at over the years as our comparators. We pulled this. We also know in districts, many districts call positions different names, and they might actually serve different roles. And so we focused on a couple of similar with being educational assistant, our life skills, and then our custodian. So you can see where Corvallis lies, where each of our comparator districts, and then we also, because many districts are in bargaining, only a few have settled, wanted to indicate the COLA that we are aware of for 22-23 that have been settled.
I was gonna say, there's some of my greatest hits on here that I'm bargaining right now. Quite a few.
So we incorporated the group average, and I think one of the things, and I know this has come up in the few times that we've been bargaining when we talk about financials, is there's more to it than just the hourly salary. I recognize that that is the piece that helps pay the bills. But sometimes when we are looking at other organizations, there's a lot of different things to take in when you think about the benefits package as a whole. So when we look at our comparative districts, they're much more similar when you think about benefit packages. You want to add one of you?
No, I just, this is just one of the pieces that we consistently look at. We're bringing the information to the board as well, recognizing that we want to be above average, slightly above average where we can be. And so that's something that we continue to track over time, and something that we shared in the past with this group, I believe. But just wanted to give you an update on where we look right now as a comparator.
Don't sell for slightly above average, we can do better.
And so then as we talked about our proposal, we had brought a percentage, and I know you all had brought a dollar amount. And so when we did some cost on that and tried to do it at least in what a comparison would be for a COLA, the $4 an hour proposal that you shared with us last time is about an 18% COLA, which costs about $2.9 million. So those are things that we have to look at when we're looking at the total organization cost. So if you want to go ahead and flip it over. As mentioned, we are proposing 3 years, and then the first year, moving away from the COLA, because it seems like there might be a little bit more interest in just the flat dollar amount, would be an increase of 60 cents an hour. Insurance contribution at $12.65, and I think based on what we saw, that was a match. Our first proposal, and then you also included that. We are looking at adding a couple work days to some of our calendars. We heard from you last time, especially for example, our educational assistants who are looking at their teachers to have a couple more days on the front end for some prepping and planning time. So we are building that in. And then if we look at year 2, so that's 23-24, another 60 cents an hour, insurance contribution increase 25 a month, so that would be $12.90 a month. And knowing that we won't necessarily know things, but still being able to keep our language kind of in place, we would do a financial review for that 3rd year. Questions?
That was incredibly succinct. I think I'm good. Good job. Anybody have any questions?
Maybe not for right now, I thoughts. I just am trying not to at this moment. I just have one question, is like on 60 cents, that's not even 20% for some of the people, so, you know, I mean, 2%, which is what your other was, so this is a lower offer.
It's a 60 cent applied to all the hourly rates is the equivalent of 2.89% applied to all of the hourly rates.
That's an overall bid, but not for individual people.
Right, the individual amount varies and it goes up to 4.15%. But we just did it based on where people are on the.
Okay.
And one thing I just to say about that is I think that's the thing that's sometimes challenging about the way that saying like the dollar amount versus the percentage, because the percentage impacts everybody equally and the dollar amount does not. And so that's when we try to look at both of those things when we bring proposals forward to try to account for both, I guess.
And I know that you bring this showing what these are, but none of these are livable wages, and I just think we have to recognize that this is because what these places are paying. It still isn't enough to live on with what's going on in our world right now, so that's just my thoughts on this.
If I could add, I appreciate seeing what the other districts are doing. But in some ways, while we are in education, so we want to compare the education. Those other employers are not within our community. So when we are looking at employers within our community, which if you're living here, or you're more likely to choose another employment within the your area. So seeing what they are doing can be a little more realistic for employees. We just got notified today that the starting wage at Fred Meyer's went to $26 an hour because they were so desperate for employees. Classified staff, there's a lot of, if you're, many of them, we're doing this because we love it, but there's the wages out there in the community, not in the educational peer group, but in the community are jumping quite high. And it's not another school district right now. It's going to likely pull somebody to a whole other place to live. It's another employer within our community that can offer a higher wage when rent is tight and food is tight. And while we'd like to think that everybody is thinking the big picture, their retirement and things in the future, a lot of times the needs are so high in the moment that looking at a teacher like that feels more like a luxury. So,
I totally hear that. One of the other reasons why we look at the peer groups is because we're looking at what the state is, is funding schools at.
Absolutely.
And so to be able, and that number is finite, right? And so for us to look at what other districts are paying folks out of that same educational funding is one of the pieces we have to look at.
totally
that's
appreciate
different.
that perspective.
Yeah.
Just want to add the counterbalance to it.
I hear you.
Thank you.
What, can I ask what the total cost for the 60 cents an hour would be?
The total change from a step only scenario is just shy of $700,000. 689,840.
If we step or not.
That's just compared to what I'm calling the base, which is steps only.
Okay, so 700,000 plus staff. I just plus staff.
We already bargained.
No. And I would I just couldn't understand. I just didn't follow. I wasn't trying to call it out. It really wasn't.
Give you a hard time.
The steps, when we look at just the steps only. The reason why I'm including the steps is because when I'm running these scenarios, I'm basing it on where people are projected to be next year on the salary schedule, which is, if we're talking about like a dollar COLA instead of a percent COLA, is the best way to estimate that. You have to know where people are going to be in order to understand what the cost impact is of a dollar COLA.
So that 700,000 includes the step or does not?
It does not include
Okay.
step.
Thank you.
So should we caucus that one?
Thank you. We want to do a check-in and how long?
People are doing it about 5 hours. I know, we will have that, but let's check in and see if we're gonna be anywhere.
What?